Alright, come join Kyle, John and David as they go through what's on the playlist, find out what's everyone's favourite at Chicken Soup for the Soul Entertainment. We have a few segments, to be honest, in and out points, no celebs and the gossip, back in time where we're talking about the big M's, coming attractions, what the cue, quick checks, who'll be laughing, you abundantly. Welcome to Dual Redundancy.
Yes, welcome to Dual Redundancy, the only podcast we can hear all latest in television, entertainment news with two males with exactly the same opinions. I'm one of those hosts, David Allen, and another one is
John Berwick, and the third one is
Kyle Bridger. I would say that I am the Maisie Day to John's. You're beyond the sea, John. And there's just so many to choose from, but I'm going to give Dave Lock Henry. I had to do it. I wasn't going to do it, but I had to do it. It's just too good to pass up.
Yeah, I thought there was going to be the blank is awful.
Yeah, I was contemplating.
Demon 79.
Yeah.
Something, but no. Okay, all right. So, yes, we're going to be talking about all those episodes of Black Mirror. We're talking about season 6 of Black Mirror tonight. Plus, we have a bunch of quick checks about a movie release that's number 1 at the box office right now. We have 2 shows that just had some premieres in the last week or two. A lot to get to. We have this first segment, and John, I need your help with it. What is it?
In and Out Points.
In, order out. In, order out. In, out.
Yes, it is in and out points. We're going to start off with something that I think Kyle sent me. Back in 2018, Ryan Murphy left 20th Century Fox for a $300 million deal at Netflix, becoming, with Shonda Rhimes, one of the biggest producers to sign with the streamer. However, the producer behind hits like American Horror Story and the 911 franchises is actually now going to be heading back to 20th Century Fox in a rumored 9-figure deal. So they were with Disney. I guess they were with 20th Century Fox, and then that became Disney. Then he went to Netflix. Now he's going back from Netflix to Disney, back and forth, making quite a bit of money on each move here. Kyle, what do you think about this?
It's just crazy to me that, dude, this guy has made so much money in development deals. And I mean, he has
development deals. Not
yeah,
even
I know.
Producing stuff.
I know. And that was my question to you when I sent it to you, was like, this guy was at Netflix for a huge deal. I remember talking about it on the podcast. And I'm trying to think of all the stuff that he did. I know the Dahmer stuff was a big hit. But a lot of other stuff was either duds or it just was like lack of quantity. I don't know. For the deal that he signed, it just seems insane to me.
I'll play both sides here. I will say he has produced content. There's been so many of these deals recently. I complain about Phoebe Waller-Bridge, who I love, making, I think it was like 60 million so far in a couple of deals with Amazon over the last 3 or 4 years. Where's the output? Where's the shows? Same with like the Game of Thrones guys, Benioff and Weiss.
Yeah.
Where are the shows? Like, oh, sure, the 3 body problems coming, but like that's it. Like that's what you've been doing for the last 5-6 years.
Yeah,
with all that money. So he has produced stuff. But I will say though, yeah, those first few years were pretty rocky at Netflix. Hollywood, Halston, Ratched, The Politician. I mean, these were not great critically or commercially.
Mm-hmm.
The deal definitely has paid off in the past year or so with Dahmer and The Watcher. But the thing I really want to talk about is kind of like this loophole that Ryan Murphy somehow created here. Because so when he was at Netflix, he was still able to produce popular franchises he created before his Netflix run. So like, meaning like he could create spinoffs for like 911. So he did 911 Lone Star. He did a spinoff, American Horror Stories, from American Horror Story. And at the same time, because those are anthology series, we saw new seasons of American Crime Story, American Horror Story. Like, he was able to do this while still getting paid that crazy $300 million from Netflix. But then in 2021, he was announcing not only were getting a 4th season of American Crime Story focusing on Studio 54, but a 2nd season of Feud. There was American Sports Story, American Love Story, sports story about Aaron Hernandez, love story about JFK Jr. and Carolyn Bessette Kennedy. He's just making all these shows up, and I'm sure Ted Sarandos is like, hello, you're supposed to be making shows for us here.
Yeah. It's wild. It's crazy to me.
So it's just like, I love like these loopholes. It's like, well, no, I mean, this is a spin-off of American Crime Story. I mean, I can do this here. And then not only, so that was the one thing. I'm sure, yeah, Ted Sarandos is pissed. But now this deal, after the success of Dahmer and The Watcher, the former of which is an anthology series, he's now going to be able to focus on, maybe making The Watcher an anthology series. And he can now produce those shows while working at 20th Century Fox. Like,
oh my God. My God.
It's wild. Like, it's just, and to me, I know I'm rambling and ranting here, but like all these shows I feel are like meaningless, like with title wise, because like, why can't the show about convicted murderer Aaron Hernandez
be anything?
American Crime Story or Monster for Netflix? Studio
so
54 silly. Like, that has to be American Crime Story. It can't be that Hollywood show you made for Netflix or a Feud or like, it's just, it doesn't matter. He has an idea and he can like, let me just spin this off into another franchise. It's great. He's a great producer. He's smart, but like, come on.
Yeah. I mean, he's able to work this both ways. So of course he's smart.
Yeah.
But I was thinking about that when you were mentioning all the American sports story, crime story. It's like it's just labeling it something. It's like Blumhouse making horror movies. It's just like, this is under this umbrella and this. It's just so silly. It's so silly. But I guess he did produce more than the other people that you mentioned. So there is something to that. But it did take a while to get it up and going, man.
Yeah, I mean, those first few were like, yikes! This is what $300 million is creating. Oh, man.
But I don't know. I mean, in terms of quality of the content, maybe it's poor. But I don't know popularity wise or how Netflix views it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's so disjointed in this.
I will
landscape.
Say, all those shows were one and done. So I don't know if they were popular at all. But all right, here. Well, 20th Century Fox and Netflix are making these mega deals, just they can spend $300 million here and there. Warner Brothers Discovery just needs some money to keep the lights on. And that leads to multiple stories that we can discuss tonight. And last week we did a What the Q. I think we could almost do a What the HBO.
What the is going on?
So, boy, do we have a lot to break down. I'm going to be blinded by this sunset we're getting here. I'm not going to be able to see anything tonight. Oh boy, we're doing it live. But yeah, so I have so much to say. I'm gonna start off and then I'm gonna pull a shade. So I'm gonna leave it to Kyle to hopefully vamp after a little bit here. I want to talk about the news story that let me just say this. Back in 2010, the CEO at the time of Warner Brothers Discovery, Time Warner, brushed off the threat of Netflix by saying, "Is the Albanian army really going to take over the world?" That's a famous quote that he said. He's like, are we really going to be worried about, Netflix, this Albanian army really being that big of a threat? Cut to 2023, where a report coming from Deadline states that Warner Brothers Discovery is shopping some of its HBO library titles to Netflix. Such a deal would mark the first time in nearly a decade that HBO shows would exist on a rival SVOD service in the US. A lot of head shaking there. John, start me off. Thoughts on this?
I just don't get it. I mean, you know what? I don't get it, but I see the writing on the wall. Let me say why. You have HBO canceling things like, what was that? Batwoman? Was it? I forget.
Yeah.
They have some canceling stuff like that for tax reasons. You have things like, and this is not HBO, but you have things like The Flash coming out that's going to be more money to produce than it is they're going to actually earn. So I can kind of see why they want to give stuff away to have that income there, but at the same time, it's literally your rival, and it's literally your competition. And unless you think that giving that to them is going to drive content back to you because people see that it's one of your shows on there, it makes no sense. It's more valuable on your own platform. And considering how much content they have now, why do they still have two apps? Combine all your apps into one, keep your content together, work out whatever fancy algorithm you want, like YouTube has, that recommends whatever they think you like based on what you watch, and enjoy having people on your platform. It feels like you're just giving stuff away.
Yeah, and I mean, Ted Sarandos in 2013 also had a famous quote: "The goal is to become HBO faster than HBO can become us." And I think like lines are blurring for consumers half the time. Where's this show? Who owns that? Where can I watch it? And if they see, it's like, well, oh, look at all these great shows on Netflix. I'm just gonna stick with Netflix.
Yeah.
Or it's like, maybe it's like, well, if I can get HBO and Netflix and other licensed content on Netflix, why do I need HBO? I'll just wait till it gets sold to when Westworld, which it is going to Tubi, or when Insecure, which is one of the rumored shows here, is going to Netflix. It's like, I'll just wait until it's licensed out. I don't need to pay the price for every single service when I could just do the one service.
Yeah. And I think to everyone, or a lot of people, the average consumer, it's like the Kleenex thing. Everything is Netflix to them, or whatever they watch fully, that's what it is to them, because they can't differentiate between all the streamers. So they're just going to stick with the ones that have content that's going to, give them the content they want. But going back to the first quote that you mentioned, Warner Brothers at the time probably didn't care because they owned the world. I mean, they were a huge studio. And why would you think that if you own a bunch of stuff that anyone could rival you? But now Netflix is licensing their content and has met up with them or has already surpassed them in the streaming sense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So Warner Brothers is kind of like old school at this point. And they're trying to catch up, and they messed up their marketing. It's been a disaster. And now they're trying to make up cash flow through licensing agreements, because I also saw that they did a huge selling out of their
we'll get to that.
music
We'll
catalog.
get to that.
So,
Yeah.
Here's the plan for Discovery. Warner Brothers Discovery is get your stuff on Netflix and then buy Netflix, and then add Discovery stuff to Netflix.
They can't afford Netflix.
But don't add Netflix to the rest of your content and still sell them all as separate things, so you're selling the same content 3 times. That's it. Perfect.
Yeah. I mean, at some point, one company is going to be owning all of these services. Like, there's constant rumors. I saw an article like this week that like Paramount, just the company Paramount stays, like they're like, oh, maybe it has like 2 years left in its current form. And it's like, does NBC Universal grab it? Does Warner Brothers merge with, like, there's all these things are going to have to come together to defeat something like the Albanian army that is Netflix. And we heard that HBO veterans pushed back against this plan, but of course, corporate financial consideration won out. And insiders stress that the deal is not closed and, may still fall apart. But regardless, it marks a major strategy shift across just the entire landscape. And, the deal will be non-exclusive, which means the series, like Insecure, which is one of the series being considered, can stream on both Max and Netflix. So it's not like it's completely all, on one service, like Paramount mistakenly did with Yellowstone licensing it out to Peacock, and then that becoming a huge hit for them, not on their service.
I know.
This can be on both services. But again, it's like, well, Netflix has HBO and Netflix. Well, HBO just has, HBO and I guess now Pimple Popper MD, Discovery Plus content. Then maybe I'll go with one or the other. But what a mess.
Yeah. Because HBO's already done this in the past with Prime. They were paired up with Prime at one point. So I don't know, man.
They need the money. They need the money. And you brought it up. it's not just the programming being licensed out here, but Warner Bros. Discovery is also in talks to sell half of the studio's film and TV music publishing assets for around $500 million. Most likely, these rights will go to a major label, and Sony right now is said to be in the lead to purchase these music rights. The catalog will include music from films like Purple Rain, Sweeney Todd, Rent, several of the Batman films, as well as songs included in films such as Time Goes By from Casablanca. The reason I specifically mentioned that one is because that is literally WB's iconic fanfare music. So, when you start up a film and it has the WB logo, they are using that tune from Casablanca. So they're selling the rights to the tune that represents their studio. So I guess if they ever produce a movie, they will have to pay somebody to license out the music unless they completely change it. But man, what a mess. John, are you going to be purchasing, I guess, some of these rights? Maybe you could chip in a few bucks and you could get something for yourself.
Yeah, with the way DMCA and copyright goes, yeah, it's probably a good idea to snatch up whatever you can just so that you can, piggyback off of some other people. But I don't quite have the 500 million to get in on this, unfortunately.
Oh, yeah. Is it a lump like you have to get all these things, or could you just pick like one song from one like B movie,
like iTunes Store, but for WB?
But
I'll buy that one
yeah.
for $100. Like, I don't know. Kyle, are you going to be purchasing any songs? Purple Rain, Sweeney Todd, anything?
Yeah, like John said, I doubt I can afford it. But no, this is more wild to me because they're actually selling their own rights. Whereas the other thing makes sense. They're licensing it. Money can come back to them still. But to sell a lot of your music library is insane. That seems wild to me. But
they must have some metrics on how much they earn every year.
Yeah.
And it must be a short-term benefit of in the next 4 or 5 years to dump it.
Yeah.
It's gotta be. I mean, if they're making $1 million or $2 million a year off of all that, maybe it makes sense to dump it for 500 million,
Well, yeah, I wonder with something like the WB song, it's been around forever. When does that hit the public domain? Like, you know what I'm saying? I don't know if they're fighting that kind of stuff too.
I don't know, but if they're actively using it, they may have a good case to say, hey, we want to re-up this. Like,
if it becomes synonymous with a brand, like John Oliver's doing a lot right now with Mickey Mouse and Disney, because that technically Steamboat Willie Mickey Mouse is nearing that copyright deadline. So it's like, oh, maybe we could do something with that. But it's like, well, if it's synonymous with the brand, it's like it's gonna be hard to pull it away. But yeah, I'm curious also, like with Purple Rain, Sweeney Todd, Rent, like obviously these are musicals. So it's like, does really like Prince not have any like say? I mean, like the estate have any say with Purple Rain?
No,
like,
he's dead. Sorry.
Well,
it's hard to find out this
he
way.
Doesn't, but I'm sure he has an estate, John. I'm sure. But Batman, I mean, that's like iconic. Like that theme is so iconic. And I think like, is like DC, like there's so many, like I think bodies involved. Rent, like there's so many songwriters and like involved instead of just WB. Like this, this WB 100% have everything with Purple Rain. Like Prince doesn't have 5%. I mean, that's where I find a little, but who knows? Maybe they do and they're able to sell it. But don't worry, David Zaslav is not done, really just tearing apart WB and Warner Brothers Discovery and everything going on. In keeping with celebrating the history of movies, it's the 100th anniversary of Warner Brothers this year, that we're celebrating the name, the legacy. We had the montage at the Oscars, the history of film. Well, he's pretty much shuttering Turner Classic Movies. Not only did TCM staffers go from 90 to 20 this week, but many of those that were let go were senior executives that have been there for a long time running TCM. And back in January, TCM host Ben Mankiewicz even was saying how much he thinks Zaslav was, just how much he values TCM and what they do. And they would be continuing what they do for the foreseeable future. Cut to this week when they gut pretty much the entire department and the partnership with Fathom Events. there's discussions about eliminating post-film discussion segments, pretty much just getting rid of TCM. So yeah, I guess no more history lessons for classic films anymore. What do you think about this, John?
I mean, that's definitely something that you have to want to watch for it to be interesting.
Yeah.
But when you do want that info, it's great to have it. And, it's one of those things where sometimes parts of making of movies and stuff like that, or the history or what inspired stuff, doesn't get documented. And then, somebody wants to look it up later and you can't. So I think it's a good thing that they have it. It's a little sad they're getting rid of it, especially because it probably doesn't seem like it's that much extra to produce.
Yeah.
But
That's where I'm like surprised by. Like, I don't know all the costs, but like you'd think it can't be that expensive to produce these little post-film discussions. Like, I mean, we're on Zoom right now. I mean, obviously they would do something better, but like have a little one wall set, one host explaining the importance of this film.
Maria Menounos, let's go.
It's just half these films are like entering the public domain probably. So it's just like, it can't be that expensive to run. And it's just comical to me. They're literally doing it, in the year of the 100th celebration of movies and our history and our past. And it's like, yeah, we don't care about that. We're all about the Flash. It's like, how's that doing for you? It's just a mess. And
they're just trying to make cash, man. They must be hurting, or it's just cleaning house and trying to definitely change the brand to a totally new thing. I don't know.
Yeah. And all this turmoil prompted an emergency call from filmmakers like Steven Spielberg, Martin Scorsese, Paul Thomas Anderson. They all expressed their concerns and called Zaslav. And it's interesting because the latter of which has a film coming up. Paul Thomas Anderson has one coming with Warner Brothers Discovery. And it's like, you're really gonna piss off these three, because like
rock the boat, man.
It's like I saw this list on Twitter, and it was like, in the last year, Zaslav has pissed off the entire animation industry, the WGA, the DGA. Remember that whole Creators Max debacle? Boston University students, his shareholders, everyone who liked HBO Max, and now the three most iconic filmmakers. It's like, how many more people do you got to piss off, man? Like, film lovers with TCM. Like, it's just over and over. But I don't know, Kyle, any thoughts on the TCM? You just cutting?
I mean, the only thing I can say is I think they're just in it for cash. I mean, of course the directors would be sad about it because the legacy of everything that they're doing is kind of going up in smoke the minute that you nix projects like these. But I think it's just one of those things where you want to have something there that's documenting it, kind of like John mentioned. And so it's sad to see something like this go. And I'm listening to podcasts where like a lot of film junkies or just like older individuals will be like, oh, I was watching TCM because this film came on. It reminded me of this time. Now, I know that's an older demographic, but still, it's like, you want to have something that you can turn to maybe if it's on, or some random show or movie that's on,
Let's be honest, 20, 30 years from now, those movies will be our movies.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
we're going to be wanting to watch those movies from the 80s and 90s and, early 2000s. But supposedly Spielberg, Scorsese, and Anderson are feeling encouraged after their calls with Zaslav. But again, we saw like the headlines, as I mentioned, the one with Ben Mankiewicz saying, oh, back in January, I believe he has us. He has our back. Cut to, gutting the entire department. So we'll see. We'll see what, the future holds. They're feeling good right now about it. But there's so much going on with Warner Brothers Discovery that I even had time. We barely have time to discuss this last little point here. They have this AI-driven project management system that Warner Brothers has joined. And it's going to use the system's comprehensive data and predictive analytics to guide decision-making at the greenlight stage. So this integrated online platform can assess the value of a star in any territory and how much a film is expected to make in theaters and on other streaming, systems. Isn't this the plot of Space Jam 2? That there's this giant database of all the Warner Brothers content, and there's this algorithm that can predict what makes the best movie or TV show. That is literally that movie.
Yeah,
It was foreshadowing what we were about to get
sure.
from Warner Brothers.
Who knew it would be in Space Jam?
They wrote the script and someone at Warner Bros. Was like, oh, hey, that's a good idea.
But there has to be plenty of shows or comedic bits about stuff like this.
Oh, definitely. It's just wild to me that it's like, yeah, we're driving straight into it. We're just going all in. We're not hiding it anymore. We are going to let some computer AI system dictate what movies that we greenlight and what stars can, make the most money at the box office. It's just, I mean, we're seeing it. Like, they went all in on superhero movies, and the last 4 movies that have come out at the box office recently are not doing too good.
Yeah.
So it's just okay. Keep just using computers to make these IP stuff, and we'll see what happens. But I don't know. I think this leads really well into our main topic tonight, and that's Black Mirror. In order to talk about it, let's go back.
We're back, baby.
Gotta get back in time.
All right, Black Mirror season 6. It all dropped on Netflix on June 15th. We're going to be talking about every episode of season 6, everything from Joan is Awful to Demon 79. The entire season, we're going to be spoiling it, so that's your warning. Season 6. Let's start off just overall thoughts. John, what do you think of the season as a whole?
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good. I mean, Black Mirror is something that I tend to anyway. Whenever it's not here, I want more. I want more of it, and they've done some interesting things in the past. Some of the episodes are really stand out in my memory as some great stuff from Netflix, which, let's be honest, in some cases Netflix can be kind of rare on the really good stuff. So I like some of it. But in general, this season, yeah, I think there were 3 episodes that I thought were good, 2 or 3 that I thought were really good. There was 1 or 2 where I was like, that's it. There's 5 of them. So, you end up with 2 or 3 that were good, 2 or 3 that were kind of, and, that's it.
Yeah.
So
I'm with you with that assessment, because I remember going into the season and hearing some of the, the reviews. I try to stay as far away as I could, and it would be like, yeah, like one episode's really good and the rest are just whatever, or oh, it's a mixed season, it's not that good. And I think overall, I enjoyed the season. I think each one had their own, thing that was good about it. Maybe some didn't fully work for me. I think overall, compared to especially the last maybe 1 or 2 seasons, I feel like it was a stronger season. I feel like, the last couple, I was like, oh, really not liking it. There's some things I'm going to get into that I didn't fully get on board with. But I have my favorites. I have my, middle of the road type stuff. Kyle, what did you think about the season?
I feel the exact same way. I thought a couple of them were really good and some were just so. I didn't love the season overall. I thought it was fine. I thought it was good, but I have definitely liked better Black Mirror seasons. But I will say there was a couple of strong episodes, and I can always appreciate that they do something different and interesting. So that I'm all for, because I'm with John. Every time I hear Black Mirror, I'm excited because I'm interested to see what they'll do. So they've got that going for them.
I will say there have been episodes in the previous seasons that were like, oh, that's out there. That's crazy. I could never imagine that. And I don't think anything in here really hit that same mark, which is kind of what I associated Black Mirror with. Yeah. So in that regard, it wasn't quite as good of a season. However, the content in itself was still good.
Yeah. I definitely
agree.
I totally agree with that assessment. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're getting smart as an audience. We're expecting, the unexpected, and there's still stuff there that's really good, but it's just oh, well, it's not as crazy as we thought. I mean, we forget how the first episode of this entire series started and what that was about. So it started off with a bang. It was crazy. let's go through some of our favorites and maybe some middle of the road stuff. I think my favorite of the batch might be the premiere. Joan is awful. I thought it was a strong premiere, and I think it had a lot to say, and it felt like the most like Black Mirror to me. I mean, it's commenting on like the biography, true crime obsessives, people like really latching on to these real folks, and just kind of destroying their lives on social media. And you got the deep fake thing with, actors' likenesses, which a lot of the guilds are fighting about right now. And you have multiverses, which are in a couple movies that are at the box office right now. So there's a lot of topical stories, a lot of themes that they're exploring here. And then just the strong cast. I mean, Annie Murphy, Salma Hayek playing Jones, but also like there's like a fun little twist to it because, for most of the time, you think Annie Murphy is playing Joan, and while she's not the original Joan. And she is actually Annie Murphy playing a Joan. And so and I love like the little Michael Cera cameo, like I'm breaking it all down and saying, no, you're not the prime Joan. So I there is a lot going on with this. I have some thoughts about how Netflix plays a role into it, but what did you guys think of Joan is Awful?
I pretty much agree with you. I don't think it was my favorite episode, but I think it was my second favorite of the season. It was a strong one. It was a great episode to start out with. I think if I was ordering the episodes, this would be my lead episode for the series, for the season.
Yeah, and I think what was cool about it too is like, as you're saying, it's like the lead episode because there's kind of like these like interconnectedness of this episode specifically. It was the whole season was, kind of connected in a way, but specifically this one when they're like looking through what we're going to talk about and like they mentioned Lock Henry. Oh, do you want to watch this, true crime thing? No, let's not do that. And they're also mentioning like the Callow years and it's like that was the prime minister in the very first episode of Black Mirror. So like they're kind of referencing other Black Mirror episodes within the season and on that Streamberry screen, which is what I want to talk about a little bit with, clearly that's Netflix. It's down to the logo. That is what is happening here. And I'm surprised like Netflix is like completely cool with this.
On board with this. Yeah.
Like they're really commenting on like their audience and their programming and what they produce and how they produce the content. And it's like, there's even a joke in like episode 2 of like how many like their true crime series are all the same. And you got to be specific because I don't know which one you're talking about. So I was actually like, oh, okay. Like they're kind of, referencing themselves here. They're okay with the joke.
I would also hope that at season 6 of a show that does really well, that they would be like, okay, you can kind of do what you want, like I would hope, but yeah.
But
I will also hop in before we get too far away from it. You mentioned referencing other things within the season, but Demon 79 referenced things back to like the robot dog episode from previous seasons. Like there was references all over the place to stuff, not just within this season. So it's very cool to see some stuff where, it is tangentially related,
Yeah, no, I and to go with how Netflix is really attaching themselves to Black Mirror because they know how well it does for them. They really dived into this episode because there's billboards, at least all over the UK, that have actual Netflix users' faces on them with their name filling in for Joan. So, you might have Fred is awful. You might have a Kyle is awful somewhere with Kyle's photo on a billboard.
Probably somewhere.
Unrelated to Netflix. Yeah. But no,
just a coincidence.
The company, the Netflix created Streamberry, like a website where fans can submit their own images to make their own Joan is Awful poster with their name. But in doing so, there is a clause.
Submitting your likeness for
you grant Netflix content.
I was
to
just
use their images and posters for marketing campaign, and everyone seems to be cool with it right now.
that is pretty like good at marketing though, because like it's the episode, like, and if somebody tries to sue or something, it's like, oh look, it's the same as the episode, like like this is really a case of any news is good news,
Yeah, it's quite tricky what they did, but it makes sense.
All this stuff's gonna come back in like 40 years. I'm gonna be watching a show when I'm 90 and be like, hey, that's me. Like they're using my likeness on some,
100%.
God.
It's those terms and conditions. We don't know what we're signing, but
Yeah.
any other episodes you guys want to talk about? I have some, middle of the road, maybe least favorites we can mention, but anything you guys want to talk about first?
Just mentioned from this episode, I love that Rob Delaney was in it.
Oh,
It's such a weird oddball choice, but it works so well as the boyfriend, because that's not what I imagined in my mind, and so it just took me for a loop. So it was funny. I really liked the Lock Henry episode.
Like Henry.
I thought, I saw where some of the twists were going, but I still enjoyed it, and I liked it was really commenting on the industry as a whole at the end. So I thought between those two bits, it was pretty a good episode. I think that was my favorite.
That was a dark one. That one got got to me. Like it was like hard to go to sleep after
it's pretty
that
rough.
one with how it ended. As fellow filmmakers, we could have been in a situation like that. Like who knows? And you kind of mentioned like you saw some of it like with where it's going. I felt that way a little bit with Beyond the Sea. I like the performances.
But
I kind of saw where the story is going. Of course, they're gonna swap. And one of them is gonna like being in the other person's body, and like of course, like so while it was like formulaic, it was still interesting. And I will say the end, got me a bit because I'm like, okay, I thought of course he's gonna try to replace him, and maybe stay down there and let Aaron Paul drift into space. But then I'm like, well, there's gonna be a lot of issues with that because the astronauts are real. So in a few years, they would be like, hello, like, wait, that's not who's in me, like, Kate Mara would not be happy years later finding out about that. But
they also mentioned that the space station takes 2 people to run, so how much time do you actually have if you don't have a second crewmate?
So I will say some of my like I wouldn't say like least favorites, but maybe ones that were my favorite of the season. And it was Maisie Day and Demon 79 solely because I like my Black Mirror being a little bit more like tech based, and these felt a bit more supernatural. Especially Demon 79. The last one was even promoted as Red Mirror. I don't know if you saw it. It was like Black Mirror presents a Red Mirror film or something like that. And there was this interview that Charlie Booker, who does Black Mirror, said that initially it was kind of maybe potentially part of a spin-off series, Red Mirror, where it's like more like supernatural stories, horror stories than tech stories. But he decided to add it into this season. So that's where it just felt a little off to me, where it's like, like it's cool, it's a nice story, but like it doesn't feel like a Black Mirror episode to me. But
definitely agree. And the whole, I guess we're talking on spoilers, but the whole werewolf thing was kind of
I came out of nowhere.
Where did that come from? Is that what happens when you like take mushrooms? Like how does this happen? It just didn't. Up until that point, it felt like some kind of horror. They have her secluded away and chained up. What are they gonna do? And then it's just like, oh, werewolf. Okay. All right, cool. All right. So it kind of they were building to something, and the payoff was just like blown up. There was nothing at the end for me.
Unless it's like a comment on like addiction. I don't know. I don't even know. I
guess, but if it was, didn't work for me that way either. So
man. So I would probably put those towards the bottom. And it's interesting too, because like the creator also said like he did an interview and he was like, I just want fans to remember, Black Mirror, it's never been about tech is bad. It's not that kind of show. It's a people are effed up show. And I'm like, yes, but like
it evolved into that.
But like what is a Black Mirror? Like it's our phones. Like that's what it is. A TV screen when it's off, like that is what Black Mirror is, a tech like title. Like that's
your logo
what it is.
Is a cracked screen. Like come on. Like come on.
That is true.
But oh well. Still fun episodes to watch, these anthology episodes. I still liked them, but they were just not my favorite of the 5 there. But I believe we hit on all of them. Any other thoughts on Black Mirror season 6?
No. I hope they get renewed for 7.
I think they got to. I just because there was a long gap in between these, and maybe it was COVID related because we had it was only like 3 episodes from season 5, and maybe that's why I was just like I'm so high on this season because it was like we only had 3 from season 5, and
Yeah.
like I remember like 1 was really good, and then like maybe the other 2 were okay. So it's just like, oh, and we actually have 5 episodes, and like 3 of which are really good. I'm like, okay, like I'm in.
Yeah,
Like,
we're on the upswing.
yeah. All right. Let's see. I think we have some time tonight. We can go a little bit longer, but let's do some quick checks. Okay, we're gonna start off with mine first, and it's a movie that's out there. It's actually number 1 at the box office. The Flash, with how it's doing, Spider-Man was able to reclaim that number 1 spot in its 4th weekend. And yeah, it's Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. I'm gonna break it down here. So, big fan of the original, and I really wanted to make sure I saw this one in theaters, mostly for those visuals. I remember just how visually exciting the first one was, just the animation style, the quick cuts, just the entire package. And going into this one, the second one does not disappoint visually. Like, it's there's even more animation styles they do, because of course we're going into the multiverse, so we're in different animation styles for each of the characters, and each one is so unique. And and then when characters go into each other's worlds, keeping those styles of their character in a different animation style was very interesting. Great voice cast, lots of fun surprises and cameos, which I won't spoil and ruin here. But I will say, unlike a lot of folks who I think really love this one, maybe even more than the first, I'm not as high on it. I still think it's good, but it's not, I feel like, as funny, as fresh as the first one. It's a lot more like serious and dramatic. There's, much bigger stakes, bigger themes that they're dealing with here. And then the first one, I mean, it was just, they had Spider Ham or Spider Pig or whatever John Mulaney was doing, the Spider-Man noir, Nick Cage. Like, you don't really have that level of humor in this one. So there's a great villain, voiced by Jason Schwartzman, that kind of has the comedic side of it. But then at certain points, obviously he's the villain. He's going to become a little bit darker here. And I will say, it's much longer than the first one, and it ends on a cliffhanger. So this is part 1 of a 2-part ending. And originally that's what it was titled as. It was Across the Spider-Verse Part 1. And, a year later, Part 2 is going to come out. But then they changed it to Across the Spider-Verse, and then we're going to get Beyond the Spider-Verse. And I think there's a lot of confusion, especially with the audience, because when the credits started rolling and it said to be continued, I heard a lot of what? And like, we have to come back for this? Like, a lot of people were like, really? Like, you're going to leave me hanging here after 2 hours and change or whatever? It's like, I came to the movies to see a full movie. So I think we'll see. But, it's certainly not hurting the box office for it. We'll see if it does anything for the third one, or if that just gets more people excited for that, for part 2. But as for part 2, as for when it's coming out, who knows? Because originally this film was supposed to come out last April, and there's already a little bit of controversy this week when news came out that the producers, like Phil Lord, drove animators crazy with relentless revisions, months of indecisions, redoing work 4 or 5 times. Over 100 artists left during the production of Across the Spider-Verse. And one of those animators, or at least I don't know if the one that has left or is still with the production, said, like, there is 0% chance it'll be able to make the March 2024 release date with where we were. Like, pretty much they're like, where we were at, all the animation that was done was when this film was one film. So like all that stuff that we probably cut to put in part 2, like, that's all that we have done. Like, so I don't know. I don't think it's making that March date. So I don't know how long we're going to have to wait for the conclusion of Miles Morales. But
animation takes a while too.
Yeah, especially this animation, because there's so much going on, and the level of detail, and just as
changing styles and people's strengths and making up new, like, Bibles on what everything looks like, and that's tough.
Yeah, so I don't know. I still say I still recommend it. It's still a good film. I don't want to make anyone say I'm like down on it. Just maybe my expectations were so high after the first one, and then seeing the reviews like, this one is a 5-star film, and I'm like, oh wow, okay, let's go. I thought the first one was 5 stars, and I'm like, okay, maybe this one's 4. Still good, but not the
Mm,
heights of the first one. At least
yeah.
for me. Some people I think will really like it, but I just want a little more comedy, I think. But
Well, again, I just have to say thank you for
yeah.
going to the theater and
I had to do
purchasing
something. I
tickets.
felt so bad with how the Flash is going. I'm like, I gotta help Kyle out. I gotta help him do something. Because
Oh,
even
man.
Johnsville Elemental is actually had
Yeah.
quite a good hold.
Yeah.
It has some
Yeah.
legs.
Okay. Doing all right.
So we'll see. It's gonna be a crazy. I have real quick. I have low hopes now for Indiana Jones. Just seeing the
Oh,
tracking on this,
no.
I'm really worried. June has been a bad month
Yep.
for everyone at the box office, and then we're gonna get this triple header of Mission Impossible, Barbie, and Oppenheimer. Barbie, I think, is a little at a disadvantage because I'm seeing you got the Tom Cruise, Chris Nolan fighting over these premium screens. I want these. I want these. I want these. Barbie, meanwhile, they're not getting those premium screens. So I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm hoping for a miracle, but that's a topic for another episode. Kyle, what's your quick check?
My quick check, I believe, is The Bear. Season 2. I didn't watch it in total yet, just the first couple of episodes, just to get a
Taste?
appetizer. Yeah. See what I did there? No, I'm joking.
Can you explain it? Actually, I'm a little confused.
um, I still like the show a lot, and I like how when we jump back into the show, we kind of get this love letter to Chicago. We get the kind of wide shots and these drone shots over the city, and it's cool. But the production of it did seem a little bit different to me because I don't know, because in season 1 everything was so fast and quick and choppy edits because we're in the kitchen and we're really getting down to the nitty-gritty and everything's fast and we can sense it in the production. But now that they're building something and not necessarily it seems much slower. And so some of those elements are missing for me. But I still like the show. There's still some great scenes in it. There was a great scene with, I believe, Sydney, and I believe her name's Tina, who she wants to be her sous chef, which was a fantastic scene. There's a great scene between the main guy. Sorry, I can't remember his name.
Carmy.
And Richie,
Yeah.
I believe. So the performances are really good. It's just that little production element of trying to like gin up drama and have this high kick-in music underneath what is just like almost like a play-like scene.
Yeah.
It's just not working the same way as when everything was quick. You know what I'm saying? So I think that is just throwing me off a little bit. And that's why I watched the second episode, because I was just going to watch the first one because I was like, this is much, much slower. And I get it.
I think there's a lot of like table setting in the beginning here.
And that's what I
and
figured.
I think it's going to pick up. I was only going to watch like 1 or 2 episodes. I ended up watching like 4 in a row and just did a binge because I do really like this show. It's great cast, and it's like they're certainly setting up a lot of stuff for later on here. I think it's gonna be stressful in different ways instead of like the fast cuts of like the first one. The busyness of a restaurant we have here. Carmy has to do this like very tight 18-month like loan, 3-month building a new restaurant, like getting this up and running in a very struggling economy in Chicago with restaurants. So it's like, can he do it? Can he pay it back? There's gonna be a lot of is this building sound? Is there an issue with it? Do we what's the deal with the workers? Like there's gonna be a lot going on with that. So they're setting up all that, and then you have new roles for characters like Abby Elliott, definitely already more screen presence than she had in the first season.
For sure.
She's the project manager on this project. She also has a secret, which I won't dive into too much, which will complicate things later on. Definitely some conflict they're setting up with a potential love interest for Carmy, and what's that going to do to that crazy alone and restaurant building situation that he's found himself in. So a lot going on. I definitely think it's going to be stepping up. There's a great episode. Maybe I guess you would say it's a slower episode, but the fourth episode, at least so far, which I ended on, really it showcases one character in another country with a nice guest star. I'll leave it at that, but that was a nice packaged up episode, actually directed by Rami Youssef. So
cool.
So yeah, so that's something to look forward to here. I
Mhm.
am just like bummed that like Disney or Hulu released it this way, just like they did the first season,
Yeah.
because I would love to have this spaced out, because I hate spoilers online. And on the day it was released, I was dodging spoilers, and I'm like, dude, how can I get through 10 episodes of this on Thursday at 8 a.m.? I can't do it. It's impossible. And it's like, I enjoy this show. Give me 2-3 a week, if you really want to do it. This could be the show of the summer people could really be talking about, instead you rip it off, and it's just like, oh, but yeah. But yeah, I'm definitely gonna be watching more. I know, Kyle, you'll be watching more as well.
Yeah. Also, I just want to point out the Wi-Fi password name was Go Fast Boats Mojito.
All one word.
Yep.
Yeah, that's pretty good. There's a lot of good like comedic lines, that it's just quick, just throw away stuff.
Yeah. It's funny.
But yeah. All right. Speaking of comedy, John, what's your quick check?
I have season 3 of the Righteous Gemstones. As of right now, there are 3 episodes out. I've watched all 3, and I have some pros, I have some cons. I think for me, I was unsure where this season was going to go. At the end of last season, they kind of wrapped a lot of stuff up. And it seems like this is kind of their MO, is where the family kind of gets together and defeats whatever the antagonist is, and they're kind of buddy, and they're like, oh, I can't do it without you, family means so much. And then we start the new season, and it's just like they're kind of back to fighting within each other. And one of the issues I'm having so far within being three episodes in is I'm not 100% sure what the antagonist of the season is. In my opinion, obviously the family interfighting is an antagonistic force, but that doesn't feel like what the actual antagonist can be, because, if they all come together at the end to do something, that something is what they're trying, is the antagonist in my mind. And I haven't pinpointed what it is yet. I have a couple ideas based on this last episode or so, but it just isn't super clear to me. That being said, the show is hilarious. I really love the show. Every episode is just filled with them being dumb, which is always hilarious, and I've been really enjoying it. It's definitely something that, even if there isn't a super clear path through the season, it's still a good watch. So I don't know, Kyle, you said you saw one of them?
Yeah, I saw I think 1.5 so far, but I love the show. I think it's funny. Just the little throwaways with the televangelists and all that is enough to keep coming back. But sometimes I do chug with the story. I in my mind, the rival or the antagonism would be the infighting. Also, who's the successor, because they're still trying to figure that out. And wasn't
very
there
like Succession? I mean, I'm looking at like just the cast. It's like Danny McBride's Kendall, Adam Devine is Roman. The patriarch John Goodman, Logan. It's like
just based on how the first 2 seasons have gone, I feel like there's been another force outside of that. But maybe this is a change for this season. If that's the case, then they're doing a good job. If they're just keeping it within the family, like infighting. So, we'll have to see. They're releasing one every Sunday, which again, I like that. I don't want to have them all laid out in front of me, but we'll have to see where it goes.
All right, that's the Righteous Gemstones on HBO, immediately following The Idol, which I guess there's a news story that came out tonight. It's supposed to be, I guess, 6 episodes. Well, it's ending next week for episode 5. I guess supposedly it was 6 episodes with the old showrunner, but then they just never updated the press by saying that it was 5 episodes. But you'd think that would have been a priority. But it's ending at episode 5. But Could it be going on more? We don't know, but I hope it's not. I even dropped out. I watched episode 3,
Yeah,
and
no.
I'm like, this is just. It was not even fun to hate watch. It was just bad.
Well, episode 6 is just going to be all the cut lines of The
Oh.
Weeknd saying sex stuff.
oh my
That's all it's
God.
going to be.
Oh my God. No thanks. I'm out. I'm out.
What's he
But
say? Hello, Angel. Oh, isn't that what it is, Angel?
I think you could tell me anything. It's just a Mad Lib with what he's doing. It's just like, okay, yeah, I literally have a 14-year-old just write a Mad Lib of what he thinks sex sounds like, and you have the script for the Idol. But that's it. We're not talking about the Idol. We're certainly not going to be talking about it in our next show, because our next show is our annual Emmy nomination reaction special. Even if it was eligible, it would not be nominated at the Emmys. Those Emmy nominations drop on Wednesday, July 12th, and we're going to have our reactions, which we do every year, either live that night or the next day. Follow us on social media so you know when that show is, because it's always a big one when we go live, reacting to all the Emmy nominations that come out. And then later in July, we're going to switch from TV to movies, because as we mentioned earlier tonight, we have some big releases in the next couple weeks. Indiana Jones, The Dial of Destiny, Mission Impossible 7, Barbie, Oppenheimer, a lot of movies to talk about. We'll definitely bring up some of those on the podcast later this month. Make sure you're following us on Twitter, on Instagram, and on TikTok at Dual Redundancy. And you can find episodes of the podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, the blog, dualredundancy.com, and of course, Twitch, twitch.tv/Dual Redundancy. Usually Mondays at 8 p.m. Eastern. The next one for the Emmys will be not on Monday. It'll be either the night those Emmy nominations come out or the next one. Follow us on social media so you know when for sure. I got to thank both of you guys for joining me tonight. John directing the show, getting it up on Apple Podcasts and on YouTube. I couldn't do it without you guys. Yeah, that's all I got. Neither of you is awful. I'll just say that. Couldn't do it without you guys. And until next time, I'm David Allen.
John Berwick.
And I'm Kyle Bridger.
And that's all we got for Dual Redundancy. Goodbye, everybody.